Okay, so here's how you make the world's greatest brownies. The only thing that I've done to prep is I have melted the three-quarters of a cup of butter, which is a stick and a half. And this is the cocoa I use, which is just the Hershey's standard cocoa, natural, unsweetened. And Janelle, I know you're going to kill me now because apparently it's not Dutch process. So then I just, kind of reach in, measure it out. I'm not super exact. Put that in, and then just kind of whisk until it's mixed in. And I usually, you don't necessarily have to get all the lumps out, even though that's what the instructions say, because when you mix in the sugar, it will finish getting all the mixed lumps out. Okay, then I want 1 2/3 cups of sugar, and again, I'm not super exact with this. And yes, I'm going to dip my dirty 2/3 cups in here so it looks like there's dirt in my sugar. But I make these often enough, Charles knows that it's just cocoa. So again, just kind of whisk this in, and I think I'm also supposed to put in a quarter of a cup or a quarter of a teaspoon of salt. Alright, now at this point it usually gets a little bit more difficult to whisk, and so I have made this successfully by just stirring it with a wooden spoon. What the instructions say to whisk, so that's what we're going to do. And you whisk the eggs in one at a time. So you put in the first egg, whisk it in, until it's all mixed. Then put in the second egg. Mix it in. And then at this point you also need to put in a teaspoon of vanilla, and I love vanilla, so I usually spill so that more goes in than just a teaspoon. Vanilla is good stuff. Okay. And I know that was fake vanilla, which is probably surprising coming from Miss Chef Me, but America's Test Kitchen did a taste test with a bunch of really well-known pastry chefs. They were unable to taste the difference between fake and real vanilla and baked goods, so no sense spending good money when you're going to bake it. Okay, so the last thing to do is put in flour. And I know this sounds freakish, but the best tasting flour is metal, unbleached, all-purpose flour, and it has a different taste than any other flour, so if you're having taste issues, it could be because you're not using gold medal flour. So I use what's called the classic dip and sweep. Let me do that again. So you literally dip in and just sweep across. And this is how the person who wrote the cake Bible said to measure flour. And so you're supposed to sprinkle it in the top. And again, I'm whisking it, but you can just stir this in with a wooden spoon. At this point, you don't want to move the mixture too much because you'll cause the gluten in the flour to bunch up, and that will make your brownie tough. So you just kind of mix this pretty gently. And the last thing to do, and this one I definitely need the wooden spoon for, is you add the chocolate chips. And normally I would probably lick that off with my fingers, or wipe it off with my fingers, but for hygiene purposes we will not do that. Alright. Now, My favorite kind of chip to use in this is actually the Ghirardelli, because it's pretty bitter, and so I think it contrasts nicely with the sweetness of the brownie, but all I had was the big Nestle's. And my absolute favorite chip to use is Goutard. Those are hard to find, except online, and they're really expensive. So then you just mix it in. And I've already greased my 8x8 pan, which is right here. Just pour it in. And this I usually use a spatula to get every little piece of goodness out, but I forgot to have it over here, and Charles will probably want to lick it anyway, so he doesn't like it when I lick the pan too clean. Now, in my instructions, I said that at this high altitude, I usually put in, I usually put magic cake strips around it, because it keeps the outside from being too kind of hard and caramelized. And so I'll show you what those are. And I usually just, kind of spread this out a little. Doesn't have to be a whole lot. Alright. This is the magic cake strip, and if you just go on Amazon, you can see what it is, but it's basically a piece of metallized cloth, and there's a little bit of padding. You soak this in water for a minute, and then you wrap it around like this, and then I usually just take a straight pin and stick the pin in and keep this on. It just makes it cook more evenly, but I know Charles really likes the caramelized outside, so I'm not going to put that on for this batch. Now, I've been here in Flagstaff. The directions call for you to cook it at 350, but I cook it a little bit hotter, 365, because we're at such high pressure, and it usually takes about 35 minutes to cook. And you want to do it until you just get, you stick in a toothpick, and you just get a little bit sticking to the toothpick, but it's not really full of batter. And that's how you do it.